The Hudson Jazz Festival runs from October 3rd through the 5th at the historic Hudson Hall in upstate New York. It's a weekend of jazz, food, and fall beauty. And joining us today to talk about the event, we welcome back the curator of the Hudson Jazz Festival, producer Kat Henry. Great to see
Hi
you,
there.
Kat.
Hi there. It's nice to be back. Hi, Julius. Happy birthday.
Hello, thank you. Thank you. Good to see y'all both.
Yes, indeed. Joining us is one of the headliners of the festival, Grammy Award-winning pianist, keyboardist, drummer, bassist, and composer, and birthday boy, Julius Rodriguez. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Kat, I know you're excited about having Julius in the lineup. Before we get to all those details, tell us why the Hudson Jazz Festival has become so popular.
Well, this is our eighth festival, and it's really a community event. This year we have 10 different businesses and another five different locations in Hudson involved. Julius has been before, so he'll remember there's the main space, Hudson Hall, but we also have some of the local breweries and other performance spaces. We're partnering with the Second Ward Foundation, with great arts organization for the first time, and it's just expanding. And it really brings the community out. And there's so much free music. If they, you can just take a chair and sit in the pocket park and listen to music, or you can hear music while you're buying your vegetables at the farmer's market, and you can hear music when you're arriving at the train station, because we got a band at the train station as well. So we're just trying to, make it a whole big community event. It's Hudson's Jazz Festival, and we want everybody to come and enjoy it, visitors and community alike.
You can just feel the energy from Kat Henry as she talks. She loves music and she loves putting on this festival. And Julius, I know you've played at the festival before. You grew up in New York, so is this a special place for you?
Oh, indeed. I grew up in Westchester, which I guess is kind of like the midpoint between the city and Hudson. So I grew up, going to both places and seeing the contrast between the city life and then also the non-city life upstate. And I think it's a beautiful thing to get, the music that I associate and know from the city and bring it up to a place where people end up moving when they want to get out of the city or going up there just to get some nature or whatever. So yeah, this is a very special moment for me. Also, I have very fond memories of the time I played there a few years ago. Was that with Ben Williams, I think, and Marcus Strickland?
It was with Marcus. Yeah,
Yeah,
Marcus Strickland, yeah.
yeah,
Twilight.
yes.
You've also been quite busy during this tour for your 2024 album Evergreen. You have stops coming up in Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and Mexico. You've been in Japan. How's the tour been going for you?
It's great. We're getting some great reception from audiences, and I think my favorite part about it is that the music doesn't end when the record comes out. The music continues to evolve and grow as we continue to play it in different places in front of different people, have different musicians coming in and out of the band. So my favorite part is watching the music evolve as we continue to play it even after the album has been released.
And I've heard you describe one of the reasons why you called the album Evergreen. I'd like you to kind of re-emphasize that for our viewers and listeners because I think it's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, during the making of the record, I kept seeing the word evergreen everywhere. And I think I worked in a studio that was a chain of three studios, and I think it was called Evergreen Studios in Los Angeles. And so I was curious, I just looked up what is the actual definition of an evergreen plant? And the definition said a plant that keeps its foliage and it remains throughout all seasons. And I felt like that was a big metaphor for what I wanted to do musically. I wanted my voice and my, musical personality to shine throughout all the different styles of music that I love and like to explore and want to include on the album. So that's where the name Evergreen comes from.
It has to be fun to be able to play as many instruments as you do, because it gives you a wide variety of things to choose from and music. Performing live, obviously on this tour, you're everywhere. What is it about live performances that Julius Rodriguez just, it makes you just go?
Well, one of the things is when I'm doing all the instruments myself, I really just have myself to go off of. And, it's like talking to yourself right in the diary versus having a conversation with the person. You get external ideas, not just from the other musicians around me that I'm playing with, but also the audience and the arts of the room and the stage and the energy and the different spaces we get to play in. So that's what really makes the live music experience for me. It's just getting to have so many different things influence the music and not just the musician or the people around it, but everything about the experience.
Yeah, tell us about this lineup. We know that Julius is one of the headliners. Tell us about what we have in store for the rest of the festival.
Absolutely. Well, we're kicking off with Julius. Julius is the first performer of six of our main performers. They're not all performing at Hudson Hall. We've got three main stage performances at Hudson Hall, but this year we're having main stage performances in other places too. And opening night is a little bit focused on keyboard because Julius is performing first at 7, and then later on we are throwing our very first dance party featuring Big Yuki, who is another incredible, I know Julius knows him, incredible keyboardist, producer, beat maker, just another really great soul, and somebody who brings all of his emotion and sensibility to every performance in the way that Julius does too. And that will be at the Second Ward Foundation, and Second Ward is partnering with us to do the art show. We always have a visual art component to the festival in our downstairs galleries, and Second Ward has programmed Christian Markley's great artwork. Christian creates collages made out of album covers and creates like new pieces from that. So it's a really interesting collaboration that we have with Second Ward Foundation. Also on the first day is the beginning of 3 days of all the free music throughout Hudson. It's a second year of collaborating with Bard College. John Esposito is the piano teacher on faculty at Bard, and we're really grateful to them for bringing their students to perform throughout the city. In Saturday, that will be the first performance, will be at 9 o'clock in the morning. Not really jazz time for most people think of it, but the students will be getting up nice and early to play at the farmers market. So I'll be there. And then on the second evening, we have a vocalist who's not as well known, I think, to American audiences. Her name is Katie George. She's a young Canadian vocalist. Amazing. Her clarity, her tone is exquisite. She is also a great composer. She's a 3-time Juno Award winner. She composes songs that are kind of in the style of the Great American Songbook, and she's very rooted in like bebop and swing. But her lyrics are very modern, and her sensibility is very modern, and she's just adorable. So she's main stage at Hudson Hall on Saturday evening, and later that night we're featuring a bassist by the name of Tristan Jarvis, who is a local musician. He's mostly known for his classical work. He's a professor of music at Ithaca College, and he plays with classical orchestras. But for this performance, he'll be at the Park Theatre, which is a kind of more jazz club style setting with his band. And he's going to do something called Deep Tones for Peace. He's very much about music in its healing, the healing properties of music. He's also going to take us on a stroll through the great bassist composers, Jaco Pastorius, everything from, O.P., Oscar Pettiford, and Christian McBride, Esperanza Spalding. So he's put a set together that is all compositions by bassists, and that will be exciting to see what he puts together. And then that takes us to the last day, Sunday. We kick off early in the morning at Kitty's. Kitty's has a New Orleans-inspired menu. We'll have some local performers performing there while people get their po' boys. And later on in that day, that kicks off at 11 o'clock. At 2 p.m. in the Caboose, which is right next door to Kitty's, we're going to have Alfonso Horn and the Gotham Kings come and do their magic. So it's a little bit of like New Orleans early jazz. They're more focused on like Louis Armstrong's music, not necessarily second line brass band stuff, but they'll throw in a lot of really amazing things. And Alfonso, I also know from Juilliard, actually, that trumpet player who came through the Juilliard program, amazing, expressive musician, and just full of love. He's full of love and joy, which is what we want to bring to the festival. And that takes us to our final main stage performance, which is Joel Ross and Good Vibes. Joel's New Blue album was one of my other favorites from 2024, New Blues album. And I love the fact that he is, he's rooted in the tradition. He's got a couple of tracks on that album that are Coltrane and Monk, of course, his take on those blues, but he's composed his own and has a really unique, very profound way of expressing himself. And he's a multi-instrument. He played last time he was here with Marquise Hill. He played piano as well as vibe. So we got like the shapeshifters coming to Hudson Hall this year. But again, there'll be lots and lots of free music all over the place, 4 different pop-up locations in parks, 10 different businesses from Marine Penvans, Fashion Atelier, all the way down to Back Bar and Kitty. So people, even if you don't mean to run into the festival, you're going to find it.
And Kat, it seems like the trend for festivals now is to have these different venues and different stages. It just gives you more opportunity to showcase artists and part of the neighborhood and part of the fabric of the towns.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because, before we kicked off this interview, you and I were talking about Montclair, the Montclair Jazz Festival, which is close by and a great love of ours, and the way that Montclair has embraced it. This is the first year the city of Hudson is helping to fund it. We've got sponsorship and a support from businesses because it's about placemaking. It's about placemaking and it's about bringing the community together to highlight how amazing Hudson is and many reasons for coming. They're not just leaf peeping or the great restaurants that are there, but something that can bring everybody together. And education is a part of that. Julius has graciously agreed to do a workshop for our high school jazz band students, and we're always really grateful when artists of this caliber can inspire them, whether at whatever level they are, to be inspired by somebody to understand what the music is all about. Yes, it's about technique, but it's also about expression, self-expression, and oftentimes, mental health, a way to calm yourself and to be in community in real life, IRL, as they say in the high school. That's what jazz band sometimes is.
And with that being said, Julius, do you see yourself as a connector, as a bridge? Because you've played with many of the veteran, jazz artists, but as Kat mentioned, you're giving a workshop, and you're still a young guy, and you're out there, providing your music, your style of jazz. Do you look at yourself as a bridge?
Definitely. I mean, I feel like it's my duty, not just as a jazz musician or as a musician in general, but just personally, the things that brought me to music and the things that kept me in music and the things that have inspired me to play music and do the things in music that I do, I think is my duty to be a connector to inspire more people to do just that. And not just musically, but in terms of the humanity of people and as a culture. It's just I think we need more of it, help us to just see less differences and relate to each other better and hopefully make the world, cheese this sound, a better place.
Can you take me into a conversation that maybe you've had recently with a young jazz fan and what you talked about and what you're learning about younger fans that are into jazz?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know if I can recall specifically that, but I can tell you I do talk to sometimes young people who don't necessarily listen to much jazz, get out to hear it, but they somehow stumble across my music and things that I'm doing, and they'll say things like, "Oh, I didn't know that I like jazz," or "I didn't know that jazz could sound like this," or "I don't usually like jazz, but whatever you did, I loved it." And it's inspiring to me because that means that whatever it is I'm doing is truly breaking outside of the genre or what people define as the genre, and really just focus on connecting to people, touching people where they're at. And I think that's kind of always been the goal of this music.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I was just talking to singer, actor, and voice artist Keith David, who
Oh
many
yeah.
people know for all his work. But I know Tyreek McDowell, who won the Sarah Vaughan International Vocal Competition a couple of years ago, mentioned that he first heard jazz and said, "This is what I like," when he saw the character Louis, the alligator, in Princess and the Frog, which happened to be where Keith David portrayed Dr. Facilier and got to sing Friends from the Other Side and all that and had so much fun. For you, where were you first exposed to jazz?
I was one of those fortunate kids who had a lot of music in the household, and my parents were big jazz fans. But I didn't connect to it myself until I was studying classical music, and the teacher I had at the time, Johnson Akwame, was really good about giving his students a complete education. So although I was studying, Bach and Chopin and things like that, he also would put a sheet music in front of me and say, "Here's a Duke Ellington song. You're gonna read this." And it was Take the A Train. And then after that, my dad gave me his copy of the CD, Hot Summer Dance, the live Duke Ellington big band album. And that's when I got hooked. Um, so after that, growing up in the internet age, I would just YouTube everything, Google everything. But that was like the moment for me when I got hooked onto jazz specifically.
When people are getting hooked onto you during a live performance, do you change your set at times based on the vibe that you're getting from an audience?
Totally. One of the things I learned playing in some of the clubs in New York, especially clubs where people don't necessarily go for the music, they go just to hang and just, lounge around, but just learning how to command those rooms and feel what the audience wants and what they connect to and what they don't, what they're expecting, what they aren't expecting, how to give them what they're not expecting. A lot of those tools I learned also through playing in church, just how to command the atmosphere of a room musically. So I do take that into account always when I'm playing a live show, where I am, what kind of people are showing up, what kind of responses I'm getting from them, things like that.
Ken Henry, I find it, so interesting. Let me stop that for a second. That was my daughter calling. Ken Henry, I find it, you know, time and time again, we hear about jazz artists giving back. They're talking to younger people, they're professors, they're teaching music more than I think any other genre. And you're somebody that's been so involved in music as the Live Music Society's executive director. You're extremely busy bringing music to the world. Is it something special for jazz giving back to those and realizing it's almost like a passage, a rite of passage to make sure everybody understands the music.
Yeah, I won't say that it's completely limited to jazz musician. There is, of course, a tradition, a deep tradition in all black music of each one teach one, like bring people up. And there's something about the way that musicians responded to the pandemic and what that did. I mean, I have a 21-year-old who ended up discovering new music and wanting to get reconnected because they had been so isolated. And that was the same for musicians all over the world. Jazz is definitely something where I think there is no age barriers. Older musicians perform with younger musicians. There's not so much ageism inherent in the music. There's more of a tradition of looking up to the elders, which is to be celebrated always. And I think, there's something that the Julius's generation of musicians is bringing to the forefront of the barrier breaking, teaching younger people that they're giving back to younger people and say, like take the labels off, just come and listen, come, whether it's, categories that record labels ended up putting on the music, or it's all about selling and marketing. But when you get down to it, there's been albums recently that have combined classical music and so-called jazz music and hip hop and arias and all kind. I think the idea that anything goes, that you don't have to pigeonhole yourself, is something that is a real gift of the generation that exists now. And Evergreen is the perfect example of that. I will say something about the album. It's one of my favorites of 2024, as I already said. But for me, Evergreen is conceptually something that remains fresh and interesting over a long period of time. That's another way of looking at it. And I definitely think that this group of what I think are exquisite compositions have that potential to become a favorite in the way that, things like Ear Food, Roy Hargrove's Ear Food, or, and he's another example. He had Hard Groove, he had the RH Factor, he had his, Tenors of Our Time. he's the perfect example of showing young musicians you don't have to be one thing. You can be everything, and people will enter and find you through whatever path they can. It's all part of the same musical center.
As a curator and producer, can you take us behind the scenes a little bit and say, you go, oh yes, I love Evergreen. I've got to have Julius Rodriguez at the Hudson Jazz Festival. So what happens then? What's the process?
Well, hopefully, a lot of the artists have great representation. They need to be taken care of to make sure that they are, you know, their careers are organized. It's really nice when, I meet a lot of young musicians who are really trying to break out and they're immensely talented, but without a team, without that nurturing team around you, without a record label, a record deal to get the music out. Although a lot of people are self-releasing now, management, booking agent, it just makes it so much easier. But there are many musicians. But I mean, I'm lucky enough to live in New York, right? There's so much music. I last saw Julius play at Nublu in the East Village, and again, one of those incredible performances where he switched from keys to drums halfway through the set and then back again, which is always a thrill to see artists do surprises like that. But yeah, it's personal relationships. Sometimes people that you've watched come up. It's really nice to see somebody that you've known. It's really great. Emilio Modeste is one of those kind of people. You see them coming up and you go, okay, yeah, you're on your way. And when you get to a point, we'll find a place for you and to express where you're at. There are economic considerations, of course. I don't want to be mercenary about this, but we have a 300-seat theater. So as much as I would love to program a lot of really incredible artists, I'm very glad that we have different size spaces. The Half Moon in Hudson is about 60, 70 seats. Park Theatre is about 120. So you can find the right performer to be in the right space. And I think as the reputation of the festival grows, we'll be able to have a new talent stage where people won't necessarily know who it is. I've got a few little young and new talents that I'm cultivating that we'd like to bring to the festival next year, and just people will come and check it out. So yeah, it's making sure that you have the relationship and connections within the industry to say, is this person going to be in upstate New York at any time in early October? Could that work? Because there's lots of times you ask and people are just not available.
Yeah. Well, you've done an amazing job, Kat, in putting together another Hudson Jazz Festival. And as we wrap up, Julius, I'm curious, going through all these different countries lately, what have you learned about the different countries and how they respond to jazz? Is everyone the same? They feel the music, or do you see or hear or feel something different with each country?
Oh, it definitely varies from country to country. But I think that's the beautiful thing about it. It's just everyone brings their own unique life experiences and their culture to the setting, to the experience. So it's not going to feel the same playing for an audience in Japan as it will playing for an audience in France, you know? It's like they have their different things about their culture. And it's just beautiful to see people express themselves in their own unique ways, no matter where you go.
Julius Rodriguez, congratulations on Evergreen and this current tour, and everyone's looking forward to your performance at the Hudson Jazz Festival. He'll be kicking off the festivities as the festival runs from October 3rd through the 5th. You can see Julius on October 3rd. So thanks for joining us today and continued success.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Kat Henry, you've done it again. You've put together, I just wish you had more enthusiasm about the music. I mean, I
I'm
get
trying. I'm
I
very
get
okay.
such a wonderful vibe from you. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and we wish you all the best with the 2025 Hudson Jazz Festival.
Thank you so much, Doug. It's lovely to talk to you again. Thank you, Julius.
Thank you.